It was Christmas week in Lagos and the air was warm and soft, the kind of evening that usually made me feel peaceful. The city lights of Victoria Island sparkled outside our luxury apartment windows as I unlocked the door and stepped inside. I remember smiling to myself, thinking about how far I had come in life. I wasn't expecting anything unusual, but the moment I walked into the living room, my smile disappeared. Sibusiso was sitting on the couch. And he wasn't alone. Next to him was Thandika, his ex. My heart dropped so fast it felt like it hit the floor. For a second I thought maybe I was imagining it. Maybe there was some explanation. Maybe this was just a quick visit. Then I saw it. My laptop. It was in her hands. My stomach twisted. That wasn't just a laptop. That laptop was my life. It held everything. My company secrets. My financial accounts. My investor files. Even my private journal. My thoughts. My dreams. My fears. Things no one else was ever supposed to see. My fingers went cold. I couldn't move. I couldn't speak. I just stood there frozen, staring at the two of them. Thandika didn't look surprised to see me. She just held the laptop calmly, like it belonged to her. Then Sibusiso looked at me and said casually, like this was nothing, like this was normal. Relax. She just needed it. Relax. He just needed it. In that moment something inside my chest cracked. Not loudly. Not suddenly. But deeply. Because I realized, the man I trusted with my heart had just handed my world to someone who once tried to destroy it. That laptop was never just a laptop. It was my beginning. Years ago, when everyone else was sleeping, I was awake, sitting on the floor of my tiny apartment with that same laptop on my knees. I didn't have investors. I didn't have a team. I didn't have rich parents or connections. I only had an idea and belief. I built everything from nothing. Every email I sent to investors was written on that laptop. Every rejection I cried over. Every small win I celebrated alone at 2 a.m. Every contract. Every agreement. Every signature that slowly turned my idea into a real tech company. That laptop held the investor agreements that proved the company was mine. It held the legal documents that showed my ownership. It held business strategies worth millions. Ideas I hadn't shared with anyone else. Ideas that could change my life forever. It even held my private journal. Pages where I wrote my fears. My doubts. My plans. My secrets. That laptop knew everything about me. And Sibusiso knew it too. He was there during those nights when I worked until my eyes burned. He brought me coffee when I was too tired to stand. He hugged me when investors rejected me. He told me he was proud of me. I trusted him. Completely. I never hid anything from him. I never thought I needed to. He knew how important that laptop was. He knew it wasn't something you touch. He knew it wasn't something you share. And yet, he gave it to her. Not because he didn't know, but because he didn't care enough to protect me. He didn't call me. He didn't ask me. He didn't warn me. He just handed it over. Like it meant nothing. Like I meant nothing. And that was the moment the truth hit me. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't carelessness. This was betrayal. Thandika didn't panic when she saw me. She didn't look guilty. She didn't even look surprised. Instead, she smiled. Fully. Calmly. Like she had been waiting for this moment. Her fingers rested on my laptop like it belonged to her. Like she had every right to touch it. My chest felt tight as I watched her. I was still trying to understand what was happening, still hoping maybe this wasn't what it looked like. Then she looked straight into my eyes, and her smile grew wider. Her eyes moved over me from head to toe, studying me, measuring me, judging me. Then she spoke. Softly. You've done well for yourself, Nia. Anyone else listening might have thought it was a compliment, but I heard the truth. It wasn't praise. It was mockery. Her voice had that tone. That fake sweetness that hides something ugly underneath. Her eyes weren't kind. They were cold. Victorious. Like she had won. My stomach dropped, because in that moment I understood something that made everything worse. This wasn't random. She didn't just need a laptop. She wanted my laptop. She wanted my laptop. She turned it slightly, her fingers brushing over the keyboard almost gently. But there was nothing gentle about her smile. It was the smile of someone who knew something I didn't. The smile of someone who had already crossed a line. My heart started beating faster. I looked at Sibusiso, hoping, begging silently, for him to see what I was seeing. But he didn't. Or maybe he did. And he just didn't care. Thandika looked back at the screen, then at me again. You always were ambitious, she added quietly. Again, it sounded nice, but it didn't feel nice. It felt like a threat. And suddenly all the small moments I had ignored before came rushing back. The way she used to look at me when we accidentally met at events. The way she never really disappeared from his life. The way her name still showed up sometimes. I had told myself I was overthinking. I had told myself to trust him. Now standing there watching her hold the one thing that mattered most to me, I realized the truth. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't harmless. This wasn't innocent. This was intentional. And the worst part wasn't her smile. It was the fact that he let it happen. Standing there watching Thandika hold my laptop, something else broke inside me. Not just my trust, my denial. Because deep down this wasn't the first time something felt wrong. There had been signs. Small ones. Quiet ones. The kind you try to ignore because the truth is too painful to accept. I remembered the late nights when Sibusiso's phone would light up, and he would quickly turn the screen away from me, his fingers moving fast as he typed. I remembered asking him once, "Who is that?" And he smiled casually and said, "Just work." But something about his voice felt off. I remembered the nights he would step outside to answer calls, saying he needed privacy, standing on the balcony speaking in a low voice, sometimes for a long time. When he came back inside he would act normal. Too normal. I remembered the emotional distance that slowly grew between us. He was there. But he wasn't really there. He stopped asking about my day. Stopped listening the way he used to. Stopped looking at me like I was his whole world. Sometimes I would catch him staring at his phone. And smiling. A smile he didn't share with me. I remember the first time I said her name. "Are you talking to Thandika again?" He laughed. Actually laughed. Then he walked over to me, touched my face gently and said the words that kept me quiet for months. "You're imagining things." He said it so calmly. So confidently. Like I was crazy for even thinking it. And I believed him. Because I loved him. Because trusting him felt easier than facing the truth. I told myself I was insecure. I told myself I needed to be better. I told myself he chose me. Not her. But now. She was sitting in our apartment, holding my laptop, smiling like she belonged there. And suddenly all those moments made sense. All the lies. All the distance. All the secrets. He never really let her go. Not emotionally. Not completely. Maybe I was just the safe choice. The convenient choice. The girl who built a future while his heart stayed in the past. And the most painful part wasn't that he loved her. It was that he pretended to love me while he did. I thought I would scream. I thought I would cry. I thought I would demand answers. But I didn't. I didn't do any of those things. Instead something strange happened. I smiled. Not because I was happy. Not because I was okay. But because in that moment something inside me went quiet. The pain was still there. The betrayal was still there. But it was no longer loud. It was calm. Clear. I looked at Sibusiso. Then I looked at Thandika. Then at my laptop in her hands. My heart was breaking. But my face didn't show it. Sibusiso frowned slightly like he was confused by my reaction. Maybe he expected anger. Maybe he expected tears. Instead I nodded slowly. And I said the words he would never forget. "You're right," I said softly. "It's just a laptop." The room went silent. Thandika's smile froze for a second. Like she didn't expect that answer. Sibusiso let out a small breath like he was relieved. Relieved. That word burned inside me. Relieved that I wasn't fighting. Relieved that I wasn't making a scene. Relieved that I was making it easy. He had no idea. No idea that in that exact moment, he had already lost me. Not later. Not tomorrow. Right then. I looked at him one more time. Really looked at him. At the man I loved. At the man I trusted. At the man who chose to betray me. And suddenly I didn't recognize him anymore. He felt like a stranger. I picked up my bag calmly. My hands didn't shake. My voice didn't break. "I'm tired," I said simply. He nodded, distracted like this was normal. I was normal. Inside everything had changed. Because in that moment I made a decision. I didn't say it out loud. I didn't show it on my face. But I felt it in my bones. I was done. Done being blind. Done being weak. Done being the only one protecting something that he was willing to give away. They thought they had won. They thought I was naive. They thought I didn't understand what was happening. But they were wrong. I understood everything now. And they had no idea. That their victory was only the beginning of their downfall. I didn't argue. I didn't go to the bedroom. I didn't say goodbye. I simply walked out, quietly. Behind me I could still hear their voices. Comfortable. Like nothing had happened. Like I was nothing. But I didn't stop. The warm Lagos night wrapped around me as I stepped outside the building. The city was alive. Cars moving. People laughing. Christmas lights glowing everywhere. It was strange. The world was celebrating. And my world had just ended. I got into my car and drove straight to my office in Lekki Phase 1. Not home. Not anywhere else. My office. Because that was the only place that was truly mine. When I entered, it was dark and silent. The security guard greeted me, surprised to see me so late, but I just nodded and kept walking. My heels echoed on the floor as I walked to my desk. I sat down. For a few seconds, I just stared at the empty space in front of me. My laptop wasn't there. For the first time in years. But I wasn't panicking. Because they didn't know something. Something important. I slowly opened my desk drawer and took out another laptop. My backup. I turned it on. My fingers moved calmly as I logged into my secure cloud system. Password. Verification code. Access granted. And there was everything. Every file. Every document. Every agreement. Every strategy. Safe. Untouched. Protected. As the truth was, I had learned a long time ago not to trust only one place with my future. Not even a laptop. Not even a person. I had backed up everything. Nothing was lost. But that wasn't the only thing I had backed up. My heart started beating faster as I opened another folder. One he didn't know existed. A private folder. Hidden. Protected. Inside were things I never thought I would need. Messages. Private messages. Transfers. Financial records. Screenshots. Proof. Proof of conversations. Proof of access. Proof of secrets. My breathing slowed as I stared at the screen. The truth was right there. Waiting. He thought he was smart. He thought he was careful. He thought I would never know. But he was wrong. Because long before tonight, a part of me had already seen this coming. And I had prepared for it. My fingers hovered over the trackpad. For a moment I hesitated. A part of me was still hoping I wouldn't find anything. That maybe this was all in my head. That maybe he hadn't gone that far. But the other part of me already knew the truth. I clicked the folder. And everything changed. The first thing I saw were login records. Dates. Times. Locations. My stomach dropped. Because those logins, they weren't me. They were him. Sibusiso had accessed my accounts. Multiple times. Late at night. Early morning. Times when I was asleep. Times when I trusted him the most. My chest tightened as I opened the next file. Messages. Private messages. Between him and Thandika. My hands started shaking as I read the words on the screen. She doesn't suspect anything. We just need more time. Her system is already built. We don't have to start from zero. I stopped breathing. Her system. My system. My work. My life. They were talking about it like it belonged to them. Like I was nothing. Like I was just a tool. I kept reading. Each message worse than the last. They talked about investors. They talked about money. They talked about launching their own company. Using my strategies. Using my structure. Using everything I built. There were even files attached. Documents. My documents. Files he had sent to her. Without my permission. Without my knowledge. My vision. My plans. My future. Stolen. Given away. Tears filled my eyes, but I didn't let them fall. Because the worst part was still waiting. I opened the final file. Financial transfers. Small amounts at first. Then bigger ones. Money moved from business-related accounts. Into accounts I didn't recognize. Accounts connected to her. My heart started pounding so loud I could hear it. This wasn't just betrayal. This wasn't just emotional. This was planned. Careful. Intentional. He wasn't just lying to me. He was using me. Sleeping next to me. Holding me. Telling me he loved me. While stealing from me. While helping her. While building a future that didn't include me. My hands slowly pulled away from the laptop. I leaned back in my chair. My whole body felt cold. I had loved this man. I had trusted him with everything. And he had repaid me by trying to take everything. My work. My dreams. My life. But as the shock faded, something else took its place. Not sadness. Not pain. Clarity. Because now I finally had the truth. And the truth could destroy him. The next morning, Lagos looked bright and normal. But nothing about me was normal anymore. I woke up early. Earlier than usual. I didn't feel tired. I didn't feel scared. I felt ready. I wore my best suit. The one I had worn the day I signed my first investor agreement. I looked at myself in the mirror and for the first time in a long time, I didn't see a woman in love. I saw a woman in control. The investor meeting was scheduled for 10 a.m. By 9:45 they were already there. Including him. Sibusiso sat at the long conference table dressed perfectly, smiling confidently. Like a man who believed he had already won. Like a man who believed today was his victory. And next to him, Thandika. She looked just as confident, just as comfortable, like she belonged there, like everything was already theirs. Neither of them knew what was coming. I stood outside the glass door for a moment watching them. Then I opened it. The room went quiet for a second as I walked in. My heels clicked softly against the floor. Sibusiso looked at me and smiled. That same familiar smile. But this time it meant nothing. "Good morning," he said. I nodded calmly. "Good morning." My voice was steady. No anger. No pain. Just calm. I walked to the front of the room and placed my laptop on the table. Not the one from the apartment. My backup. The one that held the truth. I connected it to the large screen on the wall. No one said anything. The investors watched quietly. Sibusiso leaned back in his chair, relaxed, confident. He had no idea. I opened the first file. The screen lit up. Login records. Messages. Transfers. Proof. Clear. Undeniable. The room went silent. Not normal silence. Heavy silence. The kind that changes everything. I heard someone shift in their chair. Someone else whispered, "What is this?" I didn't look at them. I looked at him. At Sibusiso. His smile was gone. His face had changed. Confusion. Then fear. Real fear. He leaned forward. His eyes moving quickly across the screen. Reading. Understanding. Breaking. Next to him, Thandika's face went pale. Her confidence disappeared. Her hands tightened. No one spoke. No one moved. Because the truth was louder than any words. And in that moment, their victory turned into their destruction. The room erupted. The investors' anger hit like a wave. Papers shuffled, phones rang, voices raised. People who had once smiled politely now glared at Sibusiso and Thandika. Every single one of them had been betrayed. Every single one of them had trusted him. And now that trust was gone. Contracts were torn up. Partnerships cancelled. Agreements nullified. Legal teams were called immediately. The weight of consequences crushed them before they even realized it. Every plan they had made, every secret they thought was safe, exposed. Gone. Sibusiso stood frozen, his face pale, mouth opening and closing as if trying to speak, but no words came. Thandika's smugness had vanished. She fidgeted nervously, glancing between the investors and Sibusiso, as if looking for someone to blame. But there was no one. Then he looked at me. His eyes desperate, almost pleading. His voice cracked as he finally spoke, low and shaky. "Please. I made a mistake." I could feel the silence of the room pressing against me. All eyes were on us. But I didn't flinch. I didn't hesitate. I leaned forward slightly, my voice calm but sharp, cutting through the tension like a knife. "No," I said. "You didn't make a mistake. You made a choice." It was quiet after that. The kind of quiet where everyone in the room understood exactly what had happened. Where the truth settled in like dust over their dreams. Sibusiso's shoulders sagged. For the first time he looked small, powerless, stripped of control. Thandika's eyes darted around, realizing that her carefully built image of confidence had crumbled. The investors were furious but also relieved. Relief that the person who had tried to betray them had been exposed. They murmured among themselves, discussing next steps, legal action and damage control. Every plan Sibusiso and Thandika had counted on evaporated in that moment. I stood there, calm, watching it unfold. My heart had been heavy the night before, full of pain and anger. Now it was steady, focused, clear. I wasn't taking pleasure in their downfall. I was taking justice. The lesson was written in their faces. Their ambition, their deceit, their betrayal. They had lost it all. Their reputations, their trust, their future. And I was free. As I had chosen myself. I walked out of that meeting room and didn't look back. Alone. Completely alone. But for the first time in years I felt free. Free from betrayal, free from lies, free from the weight of someone else trying to control my life. My steps were calm, steady, and purposeful. Every click of my heels against the floor felt like a drumbeat of my own power. I didn't need anyone to validate me. I didn't need someone else to approve my worth. The pain, the anger, the heartbreak, they were all there, but they were no longer chains. They were fuel. Fuel for everything I was about to build. Months passed. I poured myself into my company like never before. Every strategy, every decision, every meeting, every pitch, I handled it all. And slowly the city took notice. Investors came running. Clients lined up. My tech startup became one of the fastest growing companies in Lagos. People started calling me a visionary. I started calling myself unstoppable. And Sibusiso? He became a lesson. Not a memory. Not someone I missed. Not someone I ever wanted back. His betrayal had shown me exactly who I didn't need in my life, and that knowledge was priceless. Sometimes I still think about that night. The laptop. The betrayal. The calm smile I had given them before taking control. I realize now that it was the turning point, the moment everything changed. He thought he was stealing my future. But all he really did was show me I never needed him to begin with. And that truth is everything.